Back to another episode of BuckShots with Trevor and Luke, I should say, rather than the episode it is or anything else, because we haven't been here in a while. Holiday season has gotten, gotten in the way. I don't want to say gotten in the way, but prior commitments, I should say. And then the NBA is just an absolute mess right now. Um, Nobody knows what's going to happen day to day. Players are getting picked up off the streets. I mean, you're starting to see all these guys that you knew from college days that are great are finally back in the NBA. Trevor, what are your thoughts on what the state of the NBA is at right now?
It's just a weird time. Guys like Isaiah Thomas have been on like two teams already. It's kind of like a weird, almost like a trial run, right? Like you buy something to get Apple TV for a month. That's what it feels like with half of these players.
Hmm.
And so it's tough to keep tabs on everything. Obviously, last Saturday was Christmas. There's football going on. There's college football going on. So it's like, where are you supposed to look, I guess?
Right? Yeah, that's usually how I don't know about you, but that's usually how I feel around this time. Is like there's so much going on, which is great because there's so much to watch. Just hard to narrow down on one thing and keep your mind straight. Bucks are going for back to back championships here, while some of us are in fantasy football championships trying to deal with that. Plus all the bowl games, it's all nuts. So I get it. Just to I guess ease us back in or just kind of dumb the show down a little bit. I don't think we'll talk about everything that happened these last 2 weeks. If you're a basketball fan, I'm sure you're following it. It'd be easy to find. Um, but I did want to say one thing: the Bucks have the most wins in the East right now. They're the 3 seed based on record, but they have one more win than I believe the Bulls and who's a 2 seed. I don't know. Bucks have one more win than them.
Yeah, it's the Bulls and the Nets.
Bulls and Nets.
You have one more win than both of them, and both of them have played four less games, which seems wrong, but here we are.
Right. Well, that just going back to our conversation the last time we were on together about the NBA scheduling the Bucks for 5 games in 1 week. But to transition into this coming week with the schedule, I guess if we want to start today, that's the Bucks have 5 games in 7 days again. Tonight they're actually playing right now against the Pelicans. Let me get a score update here. 27-24 Bucks at the end of the quarter. Leading this game for the Bucks. Giannis has 8 points. Drew Holiday has 6 points. Grayson Allen has 5 points, and nobody has any other recorded points. So Trevor, I'm sure you were watching the start of this game before we hopped on, kind of flipping back and forth between football or whatever. Um, I guess just to get into it, are you happy to see that Grayson Allen, Giannis, and Drew Holiday are making up all the scoring in the first quarter? Or would you rather see Bobby Portis, put a shot and he's 0 for 2, or Pat Connaughton, who's 0 for 1 shooting? Would you want to see them get more shots, or would you just rather have it roll like it's rolling now?
For me, I don't really mind. Like as long as like you said, Connaughton has a shot, Portis has two, Cousins has three. Like as long as they're getting shots, right? I mean, you don't want to force feed it to them, so kind of whatever's natural. But as long as you're not too one dimensional, I don't think it matters too much. The one thing I think that looks good, and I hope they continue to go on it, is the Bucks have 10 free throws in the first quarter,
Yeah,
hit on eight of them. That's something that you do that for 4 quarters, you're probably going to win every game in the NBA.
right, for sure. And the Bucks. Did I say they're playing the Pelicans? The Pelicans aren't a great basketball team. They're down Zion right now, obviously. Um, but it feels like the score should be higher. I know Chris Middleton's out tonight for personal reasons. Dante DiVincenzo is scratched. Semi Ojeleye is out. But maybe this is just young Pelicans guys getting a quick run, and that's what young guys are usually good at, coming out and firing and getting going right away, and they kind of die off towards the end. Is that something you feel like this game might turn out to be?
Yeah, this game is a tough one. It feels like kind of one of those that nobody really knows what's going on. Like this just feels like a game where the Bucks probably win by like maybe five or six. And it was like, why didn't they win by more? When a lot of guys are out on the other team, it's pretty hard to, you know, think about what they're gonna do. especially a team that's not good like the Pelicans. Like who are they going to go to? Obviously Josh Hart, but Garrett Temple has 6 shots. Like you can't really scout or plan for that. So those are games that can sneak up on you.
For sure. Um, is there anything else we should talk about this game before moving on to the rest of the week?
Just that this Pelicans team is bad. I mean,
Hmm.
really, really bad. Like you said, they don't have Zion, but I mean, they're starting a dude called Herbert Jones. Like that pretty much tells you all you need to know. He's playing all right this year, but that's not going to work against Giannis at all.
Right. Like you said, starting someone named Herbert Jones is not a great recipe for trying to win games in the NBA. But shout out Herbert Jones, great player down at Alabama. I think last year he might be a rookie this year. 2 years
Yeah.
ago, down there playing. Um, but let's move on to what we got coming. So I had preluded there that if we started with the game today, the Bucks have 5 games in 7 days. Um, I feel like we talk about this team every single time, but every single time we're on together. But Monday they have the Pistons. Wednesday they're home against the Raptors. Friday they have to go to Brooklyn to play the Nets, and then Saturday they immediately have to fly to Charlotte to play the Hornets. Um, so Trevor, I guess we can break down each game. Is there much more to say about the Pistons than we have been saying all year?
No, I mean they're just bad at basketball. Really, the whole, well, not the whole Central. Basically, the Pacers and Pistons are just kind of there to be walked over.
Right.
That's why I don't see why a bunch of fans are making a big deal about DeRozan hitting a one-legged, a chosen one-legged three to beat the Pacers. Like that's really the bar we're setting.
Right.
Interesting, but yeah.
This Central kind of feels like when the Packers and Vikings are good and the Bears and Lions are just absolutely horrible and they get walked on every game. But to move on to Wednesday when the Bucks host the Raptors. So obviously this has kind of turned into a new little rivalry in the NBA. I know NBA doesn't really have many rivalries, but as in terms of I guess fan and support, um, Raptors won the title 3 years ago with Kawhi Leonard. And they started talking how the Raptors are the next dynasty of Pascal Siakam's the next Michael Jordan, all this stuff. Kawhi instantly left their team, and Pascal Siakam just sucks at basketball now. And then the Bucks won last year with the best player in the NBA on their team. So Trevor, of course, this game is probably going to be chippy, right? Like these teams, because of the support and stuff, these teams don't seem to like each other. It does help that this is a home game. But what are your initial thoughts for this one?
I mean, this should be a pretty easy win. Like Toronto's not good at basketball. Like
Right.
they beat the Bucks last time at home 97-93. They shot about what you'd expect. Meanwhile, the Bucks didn't have Giannis. Portis and Connaughton were 5 for 18 from the field and 2 for 8 from deep. Mamu had to play 23 minutes. Like they should be beating the Bucks by a lot more. So assuming everybody's back, even if just Chris Middleton is out, it shouldn't be an easy one because, like you said, it's one of those rivalry games, but it should still be a W for sure.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. Like nobody on this Raptors team scares me, and I shouldn't be saying that after Fred VanVleet just like turned into Steph Curry against the Bucks 3 years ago. But Van Vliet's averaging 20 points a game, which is fine because he's basically the only scorer on their team. OG Anunoby is coming out with his 19 points per game, which is good for him. I don't know that he was much of a scorer coming out of college, and he kind of developed into that 3-4 kind of role for them. And the aforementioned Pascal Siakam is averaging just under 20, which would be a disappointment if you talk to Raptors fans. But you're right. This feels like a DeMarcus Cousins game. I feel like the Raptors don't have a solid big man who can kind of bang down low with Cousins. Um, so I would love to see DeMarcus Cousins get 10 to 15 points and 10 rebounds out of this game, and I do totally think it's possible.
Yeah, he's been playing better as of lately. He was never bad, but you could just tell he didn't have a lot of run. So it's nice to see him get back. He obviously doesn't move like he used to, so it's pretty good
Right.
that we don't need it. But You know, I'm a little worried because I'm not hearing anything in the rumor mill or trading about the Bucks, and it's pretty clear that if he's their big guy, like heaven forbid Brooke isn't able to come back, like we really have a problem on our hand. Not just Cousins starting, but the lack of depth all around.
For sure, and that's something that we preached this whole year is the lack of depth. We that was immediately apparent when Brook Lopez went out. You had Pat Connaughton playing the five at sometimes. You had Thanasis starting at the five. Um, is DeMarcus Cousins the answer for that? I mean, I think it's a stepping stone. But you're right. It's nerve wracking to not hear that the Bucks are going after a backup big guy like a Robin Lopez or something like that, just to add that other piece who can bang down low and run for 5 to 10 minutes at a time. But the game after we get a Eastern Conference playoff rematch. It's not the first of the year, but it's always fun to say that against the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets are 23-10. We talked about that, the number 2 seed in the East, and of course they feature Kevin Durant and James Harden. And who knows what if Kyrie Irving is going to play, not going to play. Um, but we'll see what happens with that. Kevin Durant is averaging just under 30 points per game this year, and James Harden, I believe the other day he had a nice triple double. So with it kind of seems like with this Nets team that without Irving, James Harden's kind of filling back into that role he had in Houston, um, which is scary, and which is why I'm thankful that we didn't have to go against him in the playoffs, as he got hurt right away. But Trevor, this has got to be a premier matchup. A lot of people's eyes are going to be on this one. Everyone wants to watch Durant versus Giannis. This is a game not like the Raptors where it's a rivalry, but these are just the two best teams in the East duking it out, right?
Yeah, and this should be an interesting game. Not only because obviously it's the Bucks and the Nets, but something we'll touch on, I'm sure, right after this is the Bucks play Charlotte the next night too. So it'll be interesting to see how the game goes if they decide to maybe rest some guys just with the mindset of, we got 2 games in 3 days after this too. Don't want to overload anybody, and it's on the road, so it's a little different atmosphere as well. Fans won't be clamoring for Giannis for 38 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see how Bud kind of handles that because it's not an easy point in the schedule.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if they're going to flip it around and let all the guys go against the Nets and rest guys against the Hornets. Just for shits and giggles and whatever. But yeah, I mean, of course, this is going to be a tough game. Like James Harden, and I guess say what you want about James Harden, but Kevin Durant is a top 3 player in the NBA right now. James Harden probably top 15, top 20, somewhere in that range. Um, Especially, I don't know what's going on with Chris Middleton. He's out for personal reasons. It's going to hurt if we don't have him in this game because you can't beat the Nets by only making twos. You need threes to beat the Nets. It's like the Chiefs. You can't beat them kicking field goals. Um, so given the full strength, Bucks are full strength of, I guess, full strength relative to what we have this year. I think this is a close game, and I do think the Bucks can pull away with it. On the mindset that they're going to rest their guys the very next night against the Hornets. How do you feel for a score prediction, or just how you feel about a win, loss, whatever?
It's tough because for whatever reason, I'm looking at the Nets right now. They're only 10-7 at home, which doesn't really make sense. They're 13-3 on the road. It's kind of the opposite of what you'd expect. They're a real streaky team too. Like they really struggled with the Lakers and then blew the doors off of the Clippers, which isn't saying as much, but then lost to Philly, who they by all means should have beat. So it really, I think, depends on who's going to show up, but I think Katie's going to have that team ready to go, and I think the Bucks are going to be tired. I think they just kind of outlast them late, which, for a regular season game, not too big of a deal.
For sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, this will be a fun one. It's a fun one to watch. I'm sure we'll have a good conversation about this next week, after the game happens. But Trevor, let's move on to that last game of the week against the Hornets. Like we said, the very next day after Brooklyn, they got to probably fly down the night of from Brooklyn to Charlotte, to prepare for a Charlotte Hornets led team. Um, with LaMelo Ball. They got some young high flyers, Miles Bridges. Um, but in my mind, the way I was thinking about the Nets, if Bucks go all out against the Nets, they lose this game. If the Bucks don't go all out on the Nets, the Bucks win this game. Is that kind of the same mindset you have, or are you thinking something different?
I think they could. I think they're not going to win both. I don't think that at all. I think there's a good chance, depending on how they lose to Brooklyn, they lose both.
Yeah,
If they lose kind of a close emotional game, I don't know how you rebound like that. Um, and speaking on the Hornets, it's gonna be interesting to see how they played because they haven't had a lot of home games. So I haven't watched them a ton, but they have played 10 more games on the road than at home, which just seems wrong. So a
yeah,
big game against the Bucks at home, first game of not getting too far in the future, but first game of a doubleheader against the Bucks at home, with only a day off in between. I'm sure they'll be juiced, ready to go, and I'm sure they'll smell blood if the Bucks go through an absolute dogfight against Brooklyn.
for sure. This I don't know about you, but this Hornets team, they kind of feel like an upgraded Pistons team to me. Not necessarily the way they play, but just young guys who can run. Um, and the Hornets are, they're 19 and 17, 2 games above 500. They're seventh in the East right now, so they have more talent than the Pistons. That just feels like another team. It feels like a lot of teams are like this, like Oklahoma City, New Orleans, just a bunch of young guys who are out there running with the veterans kind of making these super teams. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm with you. I haven't watched much Hornets. I haven't watched much Lamelo Ball. So I think this one I'll have even more fun watching than Brooklyn because you kind of know what you're getting out of Brooklyn. I feel like you don't know what you're getting out of Charlotte.
Yeah, and it's just weird. Like it just seems like you can't get a good beat off of anybody this season, like across the league. Like obviously, uh, with the exception of the Warriors, Suns, Jazz, neither of them have even lost 10 games. Like we know what we have there. But you look at the East, injuries galore. The Nets have lost to the Bulls twice. The Bulls have been blown out by the Pacers, and the Bucks have been healthy for all of like I think 1 game, 2 games.
Yeah,
So it's weird. You feel like you should be learning stuff about your team to this point, but really you're just kind of looking at the pieces that are there in front of you.
for sure. So Trevor, with the five, I guess we can go 6 games or 4 games. We'll take the Pelicans game tonight out of it. What do you expect the record to be? Or
I
what
would
would you be happy with? What would you be mad with?
I would be really happy with 3-1. I think 4-0 is really pushing it, because I mean, like we talked about, rivalry games are tough. Like I want to put it past Toronto to just be hot as fire and beat us there
Right.
either in a grind game. So 3-1, I'd be happy with. 2-2, I'd be fine with two. You start getting to that 1-3 territory, you can't be doing that, especially still being alive in the 1 seed conversation in the East.
Right. I think I'm in the same mindset with you. Like I would prefer not to go 500, but if that happens, it's not like the worst thing that ever happened to the Bucks or anything. But I'm thinking, you get 2 wins right away with Pistons and Raptors, and then I do think you win one of the Nets Hornets, like I talked in nauseum about. But the other one, it's going to be tough to win both of them. Like I said, 4-0 would be absolutely great right now.
Well, it's interesting, like you said, like put your guys ready to play Brooklyn and then kind of put the Charlotte game on the back burner. Because, obviously you want to play against Brooklyn and that's great. But then, how do you handle it? Because Brooklyn should, theoretically, in a perfect world, be the game where you kind of phone it in, right?
Right,
Kind of like they did against the Cavs with all those injuries and COVID, and then be ready for like the next period of games. But you can't just, do that on ESPN at Brooklyn prime time. So Bud's gonna have to get creative, and I'm interested to see what he pulls out.
for sure. Trevor, is there anything else you want to talk about the Bucks? I have one more thing I wanted to bring up, but
Just that after their game at Charlotte, next, no, not this coming Monday, but the Monday afterwards, the
yep,
Bucks have a pretty good looking homestand in terms of home versus away games. They have 8 games at home versus 2 away games. The away games against Cleveland and Atlanta. They finally play the Bulls in there. Um, that's you got to win those games because they have a West road trip after that. They can make up some ground, really separate them from the rest of the bunch. You got the Heat a half game back. This will be a very important stretch, I think, for playoff seeding wise.
Yeah, I agree with you. Up until to see, it'll be exciting to see what the Bucks record is February 1st, because that's really the crunch time where the Bucks usually separate themselves the last 3 years. So let's see if obviously it'll be fun again to see if they do it again. But Trevor, I think I know the answer to this question. I'll ask it anyways. But I've been seeing a lot of tweets going around the MVP ladder or whatever. They all have Giannis at number one. Is he your number one MVP right now?
Um, that's tough. I'd go currently no. I'd go I'd go Steph Curry, but by a hair.
Okay.
I saw a stat the other day. Um, Giannis, I think, is fourth in points per game, but he's like 66th in minutes per game.
Yeah, something
You
like
look at
that.
the Curry, LeBron, the Durant, they're all top 10 in minutes. So his impact when he's on the court is amazing, but for me, even though he struggled as of late, Golden State 27-7. Like we knew they'd be good, but to do that without Clay, to be beating the Suns, to have some of those run streaks, I mean that's really impressive. And right now they're winning games by their average differential is 10 points even. I think that's just a little too much for Giannis to overcome with that 6 game differential.
Yeah, I definitely think that even though he didn't win it last year, I still think recency bias is still intact. How many players are they going to give 3 MVPs in a row out of 4 years to? So I think I do agree with you after hearing your explanation on it that Steph Curry should probably be a hair ahead. But I mean, you could interchange those guys, and are people really going to get mad? Other than the freak Steph Curry fans and the freak Giannis fans, probably not.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it rounds out too, because obviously I think KD probably isn't going to get it right because they have so many players in Brooklyn, so many good young players. The Bulls kind of remind me of kind of like the Raptors when LeBron was ruled the East with the Cavs,
Hmm.
like a really good full team, but really nothing you're too scared of. It's obviously going to be nobody from Utah, no one player for Phoenix. So it's going to be interesting to see who like that third or fourth player is as the end of the season comes around.
Right. And if you ask anyone on Twitter, they're all going to say like LeBron James, right? After what having 43 points and 14 rebounds in 29
Yeah.
minutes, like Giannis doesn't do that 8 times this season. But that's all I got. Trevor, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yeah, I guess, other obviously Golden State is up there. Phoenix is up there. Out of the rest of the West, we'll keep the Warriors and the Suns out of there. Who are you most afraid of? Because I'm looking at I'm not afraid of anybody. Like I think the Jazz are a very bad 26-9 team. If I had to pick one team, I might actually pick Memphis just because of that defensive kind of grit and grind play. That's one that'll wear you down. But is there anybody else in the West that you're even thinking of?
I mean, with how good the Bucks are when they're healthy, no, not really. I agree with Memphis. I would say Utah, I guess, because if Rudy Gobert has a good defensive game, that takes a lot of Giannis's game out. And obviously we know how much Giannis means to the Bucks. But no, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Like the Clippers aren't going to have Kawhi Leonard. The Lakers, Anthony Davis gets hurt like every single time he even touches anyone. And Portland not great. Damian Lillard's having a down year for Damian Lillard. Dallas is whatever. I guess Luka's coming back. He's one that can scare you. And then Denver just doesn't have enough defense that I think they could stop the Bucks. And Jamal Murray's still going to be out for some time yet. So I think I'm in the same boat with you. Memphis maybe, but if I had to pick one, Utah just because of Rudy Gobert.
Real quick, the thing that I just found interesting, you mentioned Portland. They're 13-22, which
Oh,
is
jeez.
one. They've played one less game than the Pacers, but the Pacers are 14-22. They're 11-9 at home, but 2-13 on the road. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I mean,
I agree.
this team isn't going to win anything, but man alive.
When do you think people are going to start coming for Chauncey Billups' head?
Probably soon. I mean, if I feel like the problem has been the team the whole time, not exactly stats, but
Right,
you make it Dave McCullum and some hurt center. I don't know how you expect to win, but hey, they're second worst in the West, but the West is so bad that they're only a game and a half out of the play-in. So who knows what can happen there?
right. Well, Trevor, that's all I got. Let's send. We'll send everyone off with a update on the Milwaukee Bucks game. I have Bucks 52, Pelicans 47, 4:15 left in the second quarter. That'll be a fun one to watch if you're staying home, eating dinner, going out to the bar, or doing whatever, having a burger. Definitely tune into that game because you'll get an idea of who the Pelicans are. Bucks don't really play the Pelicans much. You'll see that they're a bunch of young guys who can run, and they may get tired out by the fourth quarter, and the Bucks can kind of just work their way down by just being the better team. But all right, I threw a lot of slander at New Orleans and Toronto fans, which I'm not sorry for, but that's okay. And let's get out of here. Signing off. Peace.